Shock Piece: The Search for Freedom. A novel by C. Nguyen. Chapter 12. New Era. 3 months passed. Schools had not resumed as the fall of Saigon coincided with the commencement of the national summer break. Because of the chaos, the break began earlier than usual, and now it made going back to school an anxious prospect. What would the curriculum be? Trin wondered. She was nervous about the new situation, unsure of what was going to happen. However, she was also curious to know who of her schoolmates had left and who had stayed. During this summer time, she was kept inside or near the vicinity of the house by her parents. It seemed a whole lifetime since she had ventured out with her friends, a real torture to the little girl. The week before, the new government had announced that all high school students and university undergraduates had to make a contribution of labor toward their induction as citizens of a communist country. They had to report to schools, not to start the new term, but to be tallied up in the total number remaining for the new term. Woken up early that morning, Trin changed into white shorts and a flowery top that tied with a large bow at the back. She put on her thongs and stood waiting in front of her door for Lang. She could see her friend approaching in the distance, wearing black gabardine shorts, a pink t-shirt, and open-toe sandals. Lan had been one of her best friends since kindergarten. Being only 500 meters from the school, Trin's house normally served as a rendezvous for her friends, so they could go to school together. This would be their first meeting since the curfew declared a few months ago. All communications in the country were cut off after the fall. The media and bulletins from the new government were not trusted as they were mostly fabricated or exaggerated reports. Like going back in time, the Southerners relied on themselves and word of mouth for information. Trin ran out to greet her friend. They smiled at each other and joined hands. They were so happy to be children again. "Hi, Trin. It's great to see you. It's been a long summer, and it's so scary, isn't it?" Lan blurted out. "Hi, Lan. Yeah. Is your family okay? No one hurt?" Trin asked. "I'm dying to go out, but I'm not allowed. It's not only scary, but awful." "Yeah, I was trapped inside too," Lan said. "Mine is all right. And yours?" "Yeah, everyone is safe. Even my brother is home. He's sad because of our surrender and tired because of his long walk home. But he has no scratches, believe it or not. A miracle. My mother was so glad. She vowed to be a vegetarian for 3 months if he was all right." "Wow, lucky him. You wouldn't believe it, but I saw so many dead soldiers on the highway that day coming home with my family from Tuduk. I was so frightened. It's so ugly." Lan beamed with this ghastly information, as if she were proud of witnessing something so graphic and brutal. "Yeah, it's nasty for sure. Did you see the tank?" Trin added, putting on an important air. She did not want to be second best. The girls were boasting about what they had witnessed on the historical day, excited with their gossip. "The tank that paraded the streets on 30th April? What else, silly girl?" "No, my house is not on Main Street, and like you, my parents did not allow any of us to get out of the house. But I heard that it was truly awesome and eerie. It was utterly weird, scary and unreal. I wish I could have seen it, but my streets went wild with all the 30th April, and they celebrated like mad. A million red flags filled up the entire area. Yeah, it's unreal." Lan smiled and continued. "And I saw lots of helicopters flying around the US Embassy with a lot of people crowding about at the landing ground, waiting to be picked up. They were desperate to get out. Funny. Wonder why." Lan shook her head disbelievingly. "The boy next door, the younger brother of the two with the thick glasses," Trin pointed to her right, animated with her story. "He had to go in and change his red shorts. They scolded him severely. Poor thing, and he was scared stiff. His face was as white as a corpse. His mother had to hurry him inside, Drin giggled. She was amused now at the incident despite being so apprehensive at the time and secretly pleased that the boy was embarrassed. It served him right, as he sometimes stared at her through the common gaps between the two houses when Drin was studying, and he did not even avert his glance when Drin looked back. Naughty boy. Red is their color, you know, Drin whispered, going back to her gossip and changing the subject. True, red is their color, Lan admitted, whispering also. Ew, you like it? Of course not, it's ugly, Drin put out her tongue in a gesture of disapproval. Only a few months had passed, but the city had swiftly changed its facade into a sea of red and yellow. All the signs and decorations before the fall had been taken down, and the bicolor theme of the victor's flag became the main colors of the nation. It was monotonous and daunting at the same time. Everywhere and everything was covered in red and yellow. The solid red canvas with yellow words were on all banners, billboards, office signs, notice boards, signposts, and flags. The dominating scarlet background on the walls, in the sky, on the trees, in the school, in the offices, on the desks, and everywhere she turned to look made Drin quite dizzy. Every corner was decked to show that the Reds dominated the country now. The victors were erasing the last traces of the previous era, even down to the smallest details. Are you going? Lan asked, back to their main purpose. Yeah, of course. I want to see if everyone is there, don't you? Drin answered, ready to go. They did not have to wear the school uniform of the traditional white aoyai, as it was not a school day. Yeah, of course. Are you nervous, Drin? Are you? Drin repeated the question instead of her answer. Yeah. What are they asking of us? Cleaning the toilets, what else? Labor is the essence of glory, haven't you learnt? Drin shrugged her shoulders matter-of-factly. The little girl put on a grown-up air. But let's go and see. Of course I've learnt. The esteemed comrade stressed that even though it means doing the cleaner's or gardener's job, collecting rubbish or digging the earth, it's an honourable duty each citizen has to carry out. An obligation we have to fulfill before being able to gain a place in our education. Lan quickly repeated her learnt phrase, feigning a serious expression. Labor contribution was a compulsory aspect of their qualification, regardless of their academic results or achievements. It had to be accounted for by each individual in his or her resume. It was a brand new endeavor for the students of the South, and they were quite amused by it at first. They did not realize the ridiculous implications that would influence their future academic qualifications. Political studies were also an important part of their learning program. The pair walked quickly to the school and were joined by many others who smiled sheepishly at each other, not sure of what to say. It was not much past 8 o'clock in the morning, but there was smoke rising in various corners already. There were open wood stove cooking fires in the playgrounds. Blending in with the wood smoke, the aroma of cooked rice filled the air, along with the fresh smell of steamed sweet potatoes and cassava. Those two root vegetables eventually became the staple diet of the Southerners, replacing rice as it grew more and more expensive and scarce. There were clotheslines crisscrossing from one tree to the next, and on the balconies in front of the classrooms, heavy with the light green army uniforms of the North. Somewhere in between, there were also black pajamas and checked cotton scarves, the two trademark garments of the guerrillas' outfit that formed a frightening image in the minds of U.S. soldiers and the rest of the Southerners in the war. Drin was suddenly taken aback looking at them. Her heart skipped a beat. At first glance, for a transient moment, she thought of those as the outfits of the enemies invading her school. Ah, they belong to the current comrades. Coming back to her present state of mind, Drin sighed with relief, and her fear was lifted off her chest. However, Drin knew that the enemies were now within, nevertheless. She looked about and was surprised at the changes in her school. There had been a small flower garden in the middle of the school, where the tall flagpole was, but now it was transformed into a garden of the bok choy, the most popular vegetable of the people of the North. On one side, rows of corn plants were shooting up, the green leaves bright and energetic and full of life. Some young cobs protruded from between the stems, golden silk flowing lightly with the summer breeze. A sow and her brood of half a dozen piglets were enjoying the giant pile of rubbish near the tall crimson jacaranda tree. She looked happy and content. She had found a feast for her family. They were busy diving their snout into it. The old tree was in full blossom, the herald of summer vacation in the south. The fallen flowers were streaming around the base of the thick trunk like a red carpet, its extensive branches shading a wide area of the school grounds on hot summer days. Some blackened fruits had dropped onto the ground, joining the messy litter. A few hens were picking away happily alongside the pig family in relative harmony. The fat sow did not mind the feathered creatures much, but the piglets were not pleased. They were annoyed at the industrious chooks with their continuous up and down pecking motions. They turned their heads and snouts toward the hens, shoving them away with irritable oink-oinks. The chooks scattered quickly, but soon resumed their rhythmic pecking, ignoring the angry piglets. Belated cock-a-doodle-doos vibrated through the sunny morning from a noisy culprit who was still invisible to the listeners. He must be perched somewhere up on a branch, feeling very important and full of himself, Trin was sure. She was quite amused. "Geez, what happened?" she asked Lan. "We've got a farm in the school grounds. Wonderful. We don't have to travel to the countryside to study farming anymore. Yippee!" Lan shouted excitedly. "What's missing is a duck pond, Lan," Trin added wishfully. It was disappointing to see that the soldiers had turned their beautiful school into something very different, but the girls could not help but feel amused, even in this weird and anxious environment. From that day on, every school or university ground had been changed into a nationwide political forum.